Hey, good evening, everybody. Good evening, everyone out there in Facebook world. This is 31 More Days with Brian and Ed. I'm Brian, Ed on his way. A beautiful Friday evening in Pittsburgh. If you're keeping track, this is day 46 of our quarantine here in beautiful Pennsylvania. And speaking of beautiful and Pennsylvania, let's bring in a man that I consider one of the most beautiful men in Pennsylvania. You know him, you love him, bald and beautiful. Ed Troop.
There we go.
Good evening, Ed.
Welcome. Happy Friday, day 46.
I feel like good evening is a good way to start. Good evening, Ed.
Good evening.
How are you today? You have a nice day? You have a nice day?
I did. It looks like our show's been extended once again. Second time in weeks.
Yeah, Governor Wolf, he reappeared today in his mask and gloves. And what do they say? 24 counties in Pennsylvania have all gone yellow or will go yellow on May 8th, which will open up some businesses and you'll have to wear masks. Unfortunately, none of them are in the surrounding areas of Pittsburgh. And I have a lot of friends who watch this from Philadelphia. None of them are near Philadelphia either. Sucks.
Yeah, Philadelphia is definitely has had the worst of our state. The numbers are like triple, maybe even quadruple the numbers that are out west here. And it's like we've talked about, mainly because of population, right? Philly is so much more populated, and you're right next to New York City, which has had it really, really bad. So tough to compare Western Pennsylvania to Eastern Pennsylvania for sure. It's like it's almost two different states.
Well, the bummer on this is, and I guess it is because of how big this Western Pennsylvania area is, but Wolf did say that Southwest Pennsylvania should be next. There's only the prerequisite is now 50 new cases per 100,000 people in counties. Amazingly, all of the counties that surround Allegheny County, they've all met that criteria so far, except for Beaver County. Beaver's numbers are still high, and so I guess that's part of it. And I wasn't holding my breath. I thought that we would be excluded from the list.
Yeah, I mean, and about 90% of those Beaver County cases, I think, are all from, unfortunately, that nursing home has absorbed a lot of those cases in its own. So tough to compare the rest of the Beaver County, I think, with that high number. But yeah, like you and I talked about, beginning of the week, I felt pretty optimistic about it. Everything I was reading online kind of pointed towards today could be a good day, and for this area, and then maybe we'd get released from this and somewhat. But the last couple of days, the more I read yesterday and today, was that I was with you, man. I did not think it was going to go that way, but yeah, we want to be safe. I don't think we want to reopen too quick, but at the same time, it's a tough call because a lot of people are suffering right now out there that can't work and can't do what they need to do. So it's, and us included, we're both in real estate and we're part of that, but
Jamie just said, can you sell houses in those counties? Yes, but I don't want to go out to Tionga County. I don't know where that is. So, and I'm good chances that the houses there are worth about $10,000.
If Jamie Fry wants to, Jamie, if you want to buy something way up north or in that central Pennsylvania, Brian and I would be happy to help you.
Of course.
We have nothing else going on right now. We'll take a ride up.
I'll drive to Bedford and Tionga and Montour and Northumberland. I wanted to put a game together, but I only thought of it right before we went on. I was going to quiz you which is and which isn't a county in Pennsylvania, because I was surprised. I had no idea that there were even some of these counties.
Let's do it.
Hi, Shell. Hi, Marcy. Hi, Ed. They're Patty, Jamie, Virginia. The other Jamie. Hi, Phil. My screen's all messed up again tonight. Unfortunately, I can't bring up people's comments. I can't see them. I don't want to hit. I don't want to hit anything.
Well,
can you see some comments, Ed?
I could see them on my end with the on my phone here. Phil says, Virginia, Brian and Ed are the best. I introduced them to each other back in 1998. Phil Clark. Phil did. He's the founder of our friendship.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you for everything.
And you saw the Jamie Fry comment. Can you sell houses in these counties?
Hey, look who's watching tonight. Sean Zilla, all the way from Iowa. And hi, Amy is watching. And Kelly. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Now, Ed, you had a successful night in the kitchen. Can I put up this picture?
Yeah, please do.
You know, you can't go into any restaurants, but there's a restaurant in Cecil or wherever Ed lives that is perfect. It's his house, and look what Chef Ed put together tonight. Ed, tell us all about this.
Well, not only can I draw, but I can bake. Look at that. Tonight was pizza night here
Would
at the
you
True
bake
Taco.
pizza? Is that what the proper terminology is? Bake pizza?
That's bacon. That is homemade. That is
Ooh.
from scratch.
Mm.
The dough's not. It's frozen dough that we buy, and then you let it. Then you thaw it out and you put it in a bowl and you add some honey to it. The honey kind of sweetens it up.
Wait, go back on this. I was tuning out, just thinking other things, and then wait, you put honey and mix that in with the dough. Doesn't it get weird with your fingers?
Well, you know, it's funny. I've never added honey to the dough, and then we read something online today that add a little bit of honey into that pizza dough and gives like a little bit of a sweet taste, and it did. It was great. So we mixed that all together, and then tonight, man, I usually have a hard time like spreading the pizza dough because it's really hard to kind of get around the pizza pan.
Right.
So a roller out tonight, a big baking roller, and I rolled it out, man. I rolled it out, and I was able to get 4 different pizzas out of my pizza dough tonight.
All right, hang on. I have this other one I want to show because, wow, I have to say I'm very impressed.
And I mix yellow cheddar and mozzarella cheese. I use both. I mix them together. So
there's a lot of people very jealous tonight. They love what you're doing out there with the pizza. Now, when I do pizzas at my house, I put the dough on the grill. Have you ever done that?
I have done that. I have, but I've had some bad experience. It's kind of broken up on me. Like it hasn't stayed full. You know, it's like too thin and everything.
Oh, it won't work.
Yeah. So your mom said she'd bid on an Ed homemade pizza. Mrs. C, I'd drop one off for you guys in a heartbeat.
Now, is that like a personal pan? Is that like a Pizza Hut? That one that you'd get when you'd win the Pizza Hut pop-up contest on Sundays at Three Rivers?
Man, I used to love the Pizza Hut pop-up contest.
Yeah.
It's a little bit bigger than that. It's like an 8-inch, like, you know, round type thing. So you get about 8 small slices out of it.
Wow, and you're a hero, right? I mean, you save a lot of money making pizza at home. It's a lot of fun. Now, you do the flip. You get excited and you start to toss the dough and you flip up in the air.
I did tonight, and my wife Katie yelled in. She goes, "You're getting flour everywhere!"
Oh,
right. There was like a poof of flour that went up in the air when I threw it up like that. I try to do a little something, but
yeah,
the truth be told, man, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no
Looks pretty good though. I maybe you could work on your crust a little bit. It looks more like a tortilla shell.
Yeah, it's not perfectly.
Something needs to happen with that crust, but who did? I'll eat it. I mean, do you think I would hold back on eating that? No way. Now, here's what's funny as you say about Katie yelling at you about flour. When I cook, Ginny said, Ed, try putting the dough on a grill screen that you put shrimp and vegetables on. That may make it not stick. The tip from my neighbor.
Nice. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to definitely give that a try.
Hi, Jim, all the way in I think he's in Seattle tonight. Hi, James, Jessica. Hi, Brian Christie. How are you, buddy? Hi, JJ. So when I cook, if you remember the Saturday Night Live skit where Phil Hartman was the anal retentive chef, and
of course, yeah,
the whole bit on it was he was anal retentive, so he really wouldn't cook. He would just show how he was cleaning up while he was cooking, and he never had time to cook anything. Well, that's what I'll call my wife is the anal retentive chef. Is like I'll be making spaghetti or something, and she cooks a lot more than I do. But when I get in there, I get lost in it. I'm having a good time and mixing things, and like I'll go, oh, where's that spoon at? And my wife will go, I put that in the dishwasher. Did you need that? And I'll go, well, yes, I was using it to stir. And then I'll go on to something else and I'll look for the bowl, like where I was going to put the cheese. And I would go, hey, where's that bowl at? And she'd go, I put it away. I didn't think you needed it. So she's like the cleanup crew to my pioneer man.
It's tough, man. You know, my wife is a lot like your wife. We know that. And she's very similar with that. She'll definitely, stay in the audience and throw out the criticized type stuff, on everything.
Hey, Michael Sillings wants to know, Ed, do you need a pizza stone for the oven? Have you tried that?
Yeah, what's up, Mike? I met Mike Stillings. Yep, good buddy of mine from high school. Him and his brother Matt, both of them. I know those guys well. You know what? We just ordered a pizza stone. My wife just ordered one. We don't have it.
What's that technology?
But it's a big stone you put in the oven, you heat it up, and you put your pizza on it, and it's supposed to make it fantastic.
Really? I'm not falling for that. I'm not.
People swear by it, man.
Hi, TJ. Hi, Anita. Jamie said, Ed, you're the next Chef Boy RD. Lavelle said, tell the wife not to yell at you while you're making the dough. That's true. You can scare the dough. You don't want to yell when you're working with
Oh, really?
dough. Well, because when it's rising and you want it to do its thing, the scientific properties of yeast mixing with everything and making it great, you don't want to yell. No sudden movements. You can scare the dough.
Really?
I think JJ was trying to just be funny and say when you're making the dough, like making the money.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
My mom wants
not,
to know if you listen to Italian music while you make the pizza.
well, tell you. So normally I have my Google and I play Dave Matthews Band Radio on Sirius XM.
Okay.
So that's usually playing. I'm jamming out to that these days. But tonight, Loud House was on Nickelodeon that Rhino was watching, my oldest son.
Yeah.
So I had Loud House, which is the most annoying show on Nickelodeon that you could ever watch.
Probably scared the pizza.
That's probably why it's not completely round.
Right.
Show me the other ones, man. You got the other ones I sent you?
I'm
That was
sorry,
just
man. I tried to pull up the other one and I can't get the thing to work.
we did a square pizza, and it was with pepperoni, mushroom, and green pepper, and it was the best out of the four.
Hold on a second. It worked. I got it. Here it is. Let's get rid of this piece. Now tell us about this. Whoa.
Yes, there it is. That's green pepper, mushroom, and pepperoni, square cut.
Mm-hmm. You know, the pizza. Oh wait, did I lose the pizza? We lost the pizza. But you know, your pizza, Ed, looks a lot like Chuck E. Cheese. Like it looks a little flat. Is it gross like Chuck E. Cheese?
No, it's thin. It's definitely a very thin crust. I like a thin crust. I don't like a thick. So.
And so when you went here, this is 2 types of cheese with pepperoni, mixed in with peppers. That's great.
Yeah, green pepper and mushroom.
You know, it's funny when we were preparing for Wolf to what I thought he would hopefully say that Allegheny County was going to be open, and it was kind of like the buzz that maybe it was going to open. There was a very small part of me that thought, I kind of like doing nothing.
There's a big part of me. I keep joking with you because I want to stay face with you. I'm like, man, I really missed real estate. I really want to get back at real estate. But there's a bigger part of me. It's kind of enjoying not really moving till 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning every day.
Yeah, like maybe I should milk it. Even though I when we had Sally Wiggin on, she said that she was a germaphobe, and when she went to Market District, she hid in one of the aisles so people wouldn't touch her or see her. And she said that she'll wipe Purell all over her face and she won't mind if it drips into her eyeballs. Like she's extreme. But I do think like, well, maybe I should start telling people that, like at least the people I don't want to see anymore, just say, hey, this coronavirus thing still got me wrong in the brain. I can't come out tonight.
You can't do it. I know, man. I hear you.
Yeah.
Your neighbor asked me what do I do for sauce, homemade or store bought. So we do store bought with that, and I'm not a big fan of it. So I'm open for suggestions. If anybody has any suggestions on a good,
just make your own. I think that's what she's trying to say is make your own.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I guess I could.
I mean, isn't it just a can of sauce and then you just put garlic salt in it and there you go?
Yeah, that's probably one way to do it. We use just a regular Giant Eagle brand, I think. Yeah. Pizza sauce.
That's fine. Okay. What are your kids? How old's Brendan? 6?
Yeah, 6-year-olds. No,
his palate it won't mix well with his palate. Fine,
yeah, exactly.
Don't worry. Hey, our guest tonight is Chris Shovlin from Robert Morris, and we were talking a little bit about Chris last night. For those of you who do not tune in regularly to listen to Robert Morris football and basketball, he's been the voice of the Colonials since I believe 1987. I'm probably wrong on that, and he'll correct me. But this guy's voice is gold. Every time I see him at a social event, I always want to make sure my voice sounds just as good as his, and it can't. But when I see him, Chris will say, and he's so nice, by the way. How do you get these voices of God, and they're so nice people? But anyway, I'll see Chris, and I'll go. I don't go right up to him. I wait, and then I go, good evening, Chris. How are you doing? And he's got this great voice, and he'll go, Brian, I'm doing great tonight. But the difference is I'm working so hard to sound like Chris, and Chris just sounds like, he's a broadcasting angel. How do you get that voice? I don't know. You got to work hard for it.
It's funny when we first came out of college, and of course I was doing football and basketball games. I toyed with a little bit to try to do more of a voice like this, like a good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome here to the Wolverina tonight, where Woodland Hills takes on North Hills, the team of 2.
Right.
And you just can't. At least me, I can't sustain it longer than 2.
But if you're Chris, you're born with it, baby. Right?
I just there you go. Here's Carruthers over the Troop for a 3-ball. It's down and good, and it's 4-0 Colonials here early.
But I want to know, and Chris is waiting to go, so let's bring him in. But what I want to know is, like, when he calls, now he's not making homemade pizza like you. He'd never, hopefully, humble himself and make his own pizza. But when he calls a Domino's or a local, does it sound like, "Good evening, this is Chris Shovlin calling from his house. I would like a large pepperoni pizza, please. Brought to you by Domino's, the #1 choice in pizza." And they're like, "Please hold."
Reminds me of my old Bill Hillgrove impression.
Oh, okay, let's hear it.
That kick is high enough. That kick is long enough. And that kick is good.
All right,
and it's 3-0 Steelers.
Oh.
Your Pizza Outlet Pizza halftime show brought to you by Pizza Outlet. Order yours now. Have it delivered by halftime.
Now I have my first question for Chris. How many people come up to him and redo play-by-play calls that touch their hearts and try to sound like him, and he has to smile through them? All right, let's bring him in. Chris Shovlin is the longtime voice of Colonial basketball and football, and here he is with us tonight. Hi, Chris.
Where do I have to send the check? That's what I want to know.
Or should I say, good evening, Chris. It's great to see you.
Good evening, Brian. Good evening, Ed.
Hey, Chris, what's going on,
do
man?
I really talk like that? Come on.
Chris, you have it, baby. Don't worry about it. Don't even second guess it. I'm trying to be you.
Brian, that's funny. That's funny. No, I don't know. It's just me. That's all.
But do people come up to you and you think of there's so many monumental wins for people who follow the Colonials in football and basketball when they relive these stories? And you're such a gracious person. I'm sure you stand there and you listen to people tell you these stories. But when they start to impersonate your calls of these games, do you cringe and go, "Oh, is that how I sound?" Or do you go, "Well, at least you remembered"?
At least they remembered. And, you know, what's getting bad about it is now they're telling me about games that I did in 1987 or 1992. And I'm thinking, you know what, that was a long time ago. But no, it's gratifying. It is. And it's very complimentary and it's appreciated. It truly is. And you know, I appreciate running into you when I do. And you guys have always been kind.
Well, it's never a natural running, Chris. Again, I always see you. Then I go in the corner and go, I do a little 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because I want to bring the best when I'm talking to the best.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll share a story with you that I've only told a few people about. I met Vin Scully, the voice of the Los Angeles Dodgers, once, and I was standing in line at the commissary at the old Three River Stadium, and I didn't realize he was in front of me. And he turned around and he stuck his hand out and he said, "Hello." And I was like, "You're Vin Scully." Like I couldn't speak to him. I mean, it was unbelievable. But you know, it's fantastic when you run into people that you hear on the radio and you see on TV, and you're mesmerized by them. And you know, it's happened to me just a few times. Believe me, you know, not as much as a Bill Hillgrove or a Vin Scully or somebody of that stature. But it's nice to know that people listen to you and they appreciate what you try to do.
For sure.
Hey, Chris, definitely a fan of yours, man. You've done a great job over the years, and I'm more on the high school level. So I've done some high school games at Joe Walton Stadium there, and I was talking to Brian last night about this, and I couldn't remember. I know Olsh played their games there for a while, so I did a couple Olsh games a few years ago, and then the championship games, of course, have been played at RMU as well. The single A and double A games, I've caught a couple of those, but. Is the press box there tinted? I couldn't remember if it was there or South Fayette. It's Robert Morris, right? Where you guys, your press box is tinted. So when you call a game at night, it's extremely difficult.
It's extremely difficult, and Ed, and frankly, when you call a game at night, you get basically you're looking at yourself in a mirror because the windows are tinted. Because the way the light reflects off of the back of the press box, we actually have to turn the lights off in the press box. And what makes it even more difficult, and I complain about this all the time, I love Robert Morris football, and I love Under Armour, but the uniform numbers are so hard to read from that press box. The home team, the Robert Morris, when it's home, typically wears a navy blue jersey with a red numeral and a gray piping around it. And it's almost impossible to read those things, whether the sun's shining or whether the lights are on. And it's brutal. It really is. And it makes, you know, your job as the play-by-play announcer that much more difficult.
Yeah, I struggled through a few broadcasts there myself over the years with that tint, and I couldn't remember because it was either there or South Fayette, but RMU it was definitely the tinted press box, and then you have to have like a little light or something so you can read your notes and your roster and everything. Because if the light's out in the press box, you can't.
Yeah,
read.
we've actually put a desk lamp on top of the table that we sit in front of, and unfortunately, the light that comes off of the desk lamp also reflects into the window, so you can see they have this fancy, scrolly, metallic and green hooded desk lamp that they let me use, and I could see the reflection of that in the window as I'm calling the game. So, but it's still, it's a great box though. It really is comfortable.
It is a sport itself to call the games, and Ed does a great job at it as well. But how long does it take you? I'm sure we're thinking years here to just not be so distracted when you have to describe what you're seeing. I mean, radio is its own unique beast. I'm so distracted. I mean, I would start talking about the worst parts of the game, but you seem to bring out the best. What is the number one? Is the number one thing you're focusing on the ball, the game, the people, the atmosphere? How's your brain figure that out?
I guess a little bit of everything, Brian. What you try to do, you try to put yourself in that chair and you try to become the eyes of the people that you're talking to, basically. And you try to become as descriptive as possible. And, I know that, the great play-by-play guys from Pittsburgh down through the years, the Bill Hillgroves, the Jack Flemings, the Lanny Terrys, the Bob Princes, I can go on and on and on, the Mike Langs, of course. They try to be as descriptive as possible and draw the most complete picture as possible. So I think the challenge, at least to me, when I sit down and the game gets ready to go, once the technical stuff is out of the way and it's just the broadcast, I try to draw as complete and descriptive a picture as I possibly can and try to make myself the eyes of that person who's listening in their car or at home or wherever, and try to give them and paint them a picture that they can see. And when people have come up to me and told me, you're really descriptive, sometimes I can see how blue the sky is when you say how blue the sky is, and that's a compliment.
You got whatever you want.
Yeah, really, and it's theater of the mind. Radio's theater of the mind, as you know.
For sure. Do you think, Chris, that we're going to see football this fall at Joe Walton Stadium?
Well, I hope so. I don't know. I heard what you guys were saying about the different counties and what county is on the verge of opening, which counties are not. I don't know. It's crazy. I mean, my full-time position is with the Lincoln Park Performing Arts Center, and right now we backed up our productions. We had 3 more productions that were supposed to go on this year in this season between now and June, and we've had to push them into next season already. So, and we're not even sure what kind of directives we're going to get as far as indoor theater seating is concerned. Is it going to be every other seat that you're allowed to fill? Is it going to be a 6 or an 8 foot gap between seats? We're not sure. So, and it kind of lends into your question about sports. Will there be Robert Morris football this fall? It's a great question. I mean, how do you bring in kids for summer camp and get them ready for a season, let alone bring fans into a stadium and worry about where everybody's going to be seated? We just don't know anything. I'm hoping it comes to fruition, but who knows?
Yeah, and what about there's a rumor that NFL teams, Ed and I were talking about this earlier in the week, and one of the many rumors to try to bring it back was that the Steelers, because the campuses will be closed, every NFL team will try to take over a campus that has a stadium, keep it quarantined in a lockdown. These are just maddening. I'm glad I'm not the one making the decisions on them because it's just maddening.
It really is, and I heard you guys talking about this earlier in the week, and you kind of wonder, do they lock down a campus that isn't being used and use the facilities, the dorms, and so on and so forth, and then go use the football stadium? Yeah, and just play the games in front of no fans and just do it as a made-for-television type of event. I don't know. It's anybody's guess right now. I mean, the best thing that we can all do is sit here and hope and pray that they come up with a vaccine as soon as possible. But right. we're a long way off from that, from what we hear.
It's hard to envision football like we talk about, but then taking a step further and start thinking about hoops and being indoors. I mean, at least football, you're outside. There's a little bit of relief there, but basketball, you're inside of a packed gym. small gym or small atmosphere. And it's hard right now as we sit here today to think that could be possible later on in the fall or next
Yeah,
winter.
it's a good point, Ed. And look at the way that it came down to the stopping point this past season. I mean, it just stopped, literally. We played a championship game on I think it was a Tuesday night. And 2 days later, we were told, that's it, you're done. And just be thankful that you played a championship game and that you won your tournament, because that's as far as it's going to go.
And that the referee for that game had coronavirus, and I immediately thought, right, we got to put our RMU heroes in a cave and protect them. Shovlin, Poole, Marty Golosi. We got to get them all in a cave right now and protect them.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll give a lot of credit to the guys that you mentioned, the university itself, and Marty and Jim Duzick. They called all of us right away and said, we want you to know that one of the officials tested positive with COVID-19, and are you okay? It's like, yeah, I'm fine. Did you talk to the officials? And I said, well, one of them came over and said hello, and I didn't shake his hand or anything. I said, maybe, Jimmy Elias, my partner, might have. And, I called Jimmy right away and I said, hey, they started a phone chain. They want all of us to, to give them an answer how we're feeling. And, as far as I know, everybody came out of that okay. But, it was more.
How many just you in one night, and did it that night with the new center being sold out, rocking and rolling. Everybody knows you when they see you. How many people do you come in contact with almost subconsciously that you don't, because everything is going so fast? That had to be nerve wracking.
It was, because you think back in your mind, you try to replay everything back in your mind, and you try to remember it. Did I say hi to this guy this time? And yeah, I said hi, but I didn't shake his hand. And it's like you're right. I mean, how many people do you come in contact at a game like that, particularly that one? Because usually the bigger games I try to get to early just to calm myself down a little bit. And I was there probably 3 hours before the game started, and I was replaying in my mind who I talked to, who I bumped into, and it was like, we're okay. Thank you. Okay.
Chris, talk about, that tournament game with the Colonial basketball team. I mean, you guys were on ESPN for gosh sake. They had the game on there, and they were talking about it afterwards. There was so much hype behind this team. How talented was this team, and how far do you think they could end up? They could have went.
I don't think there's any question in my mind. I personally, and this is my opinion, I thought that they would end up in the first four in Dayton. I think that's what all the experts were saying, and most of the prognosticators were saying that. I mean, if you look at the bracketologists, they were all talking about, whoever wins the NEC is probably going to end up in Dayton. And that's where I thought we would go. I also thought we would win that game, just like Robert Morris did in 2015 when they beat North Florida and ended up playing Duke, the eventual national champion that year, in the second round. That's what we were all hoping for. That's what we were all thinking. And that team, that this year's Robert Morris basketball team, was that good that it could have done it. I mean, what they did to that St. Francis team, which to me was the best team in the NEC this year, what they did to them that night in that championship game was just unimaginable. They played the absolute perfect basketball game and played them extremely well and extremely hard and took it right to them. And you always hear the term when a coach says, well, we got to punch them in the face early in the game. Man, they suck. I mean, they pounded them to the floor in that first part of the ball game. It really set the tone for the game, and they were tremendous. And I didn't think they would not win in that first four game. I was counting on going to a couple of NCAA bowl games.
Yeah, that's a bummer. We were a little bit on the ropes. We got a chance to go and see a couple of the games and then a few of the playoff games. And I thought, well, maybe some teams have Robert Morris's number. They were on the ropes at some times, right? And boy, that St. Francis game, you're right, man, was just, they came out just balls out, right? I mean, it was just great basketball, and they were not to be denied. It was pretty cool.
They were tremendous. And, what Dante Tracy did in that game, and he's only a sophomore. I mean, he put the team on his shoulders that night. And, there were other stars, but Dante really stood out, and that's why he was the player of the tournament, the MVP. But and you're right, Brian. I mean, there were teams that Robert Morris just had trouble with this year, and Fairleigh Dickinson was one of them. They just could not seem to get over the hump with FDU, the defending champion. But and St. Francis had beaten them twice, and fortunately, that third time was a charm.
And what a bummer, though, for the seniors and for all the players who had an impact. And I guess if you're on the team, you have an impact, but just the support staff around it, the broadcasting crew, the athletic committee, everybody who then finds out that March Madness is canceled. I mean, which was really the first thing that got canceled that really, I think, shocked the world. What was your reaction when you first heard that? And did you talk to anyone immediately within Robert Morris that kind of shared how disappointed you were when they were?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking constantly. I texted Coach Toole a couple of times. As a matter of fact, Jim Elias, my broadcast partner, and I, Jim Duzick, our SID, Marty Galosi, Chris King, the new AD, we were all talking back and forth about what the next step would be. Would the tournament come back? Is this just for the time being? Would they schedule it in a month from now? I mean, there were all of these possibilities and people hanging on to all these threads of hope, and nothing came to fruition. It just it ended up going away. But you're right; it was the first thing that really got knocked off of everyone's agenda. It was
Shocking.
the NCAA tournament. It was a shock. It was a shock. A couple of weeks after everything was canceled, and we can't use the word postponed because it was canceled. But a couple of weeks after that, I heard Bob Huggins do an interview on one of the sports stations, and he was talking about, well, maybe what we could do is next year give the seniors their eligibility back for a couple of months, and we'll start the season with this year's NCAA tournament, play it next year in October, and then once that plays out, then we can start the 2021 season. And everybody was going, oh, boy, that's a good idea. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Hey, Chris, I'm watching Horse on ESPN tonight. If we bring back October Madness, I'll watch it. I'm watching Hit Tag starring the Watt brothers. I'll watch October
Madness. Hey, Chris, where do you put Andy Toole as far as coaches go over the years? All these different teams you've seen at Robert Morris and coaches. I mean, I really feel his 8 years now. I think he's been there. They've really. Has he been there 8
He's been there
already?
10 actually, and 13 total because he came. He was an assistant under Mike Rice when he first came here, and spent 3 years as an assistant, and he's been here as a head coach ever since. So. Where do I put him? I put him right up there with all the great coaches in Robert Morris history. The Matt Furjanics, the Jared Durhams, the Mike Rices, the guys who've taken this team to the tournament multiple times. And the fact that Robert Morris didn't go to March Madness this year doesn't take away that he won that conference championship. That's his second one. To me, Andy is the most cerebral coach I've been around at Robert Morris. He is a thinking man's coach. He has a great respect and a great love for the game and admiration for the history of basketball. We talk about that quite a bit. As a matter of fact, Andy's from the Jersey Shore. He's from Staten Island originally, but grew up in the Jersey Shore. But I just shared with him a couple of articles about Beaver County High School basketball, where I'm from. The history of Beaver County basketball is pretty deep with the Simi Hills and the Norm Van Leers and the Dante Calabrias. And Mike Byers just did a really nice series of articles in the Beaver County Times about the greatest all-time players here. And I shared those with Andy. I said, I know you don't know who these guys are, but some of them come to your games. Like Dante Calabria's dad, Chad, comes to a lot of our ball games. And Chad was a great player at the University of Iowa. So I shared the series of articles with Andy to make sure that he knew that the history of Beaver County high school basketball ran very, very deep.
I had last year we were taking a couple games at the field house on campus, and I thought this is a cool atmosphere. But boy, the UPMC Center, man, wow! Were you blown away when you first had the chance to go in to call a game there?
I really was, and Brian, when the first time I walked in there after the construction was completed, I could not believe my eyes. And it's funny, being, not only the broadcaster for Robert Morris, but a huge fan of the Colonials. I walked around that building for a couple of hours, and I went almost into every row And in the highest rows, I sat in the seats that most people would say, "Oh, these are peanut heaven seats." But the thing is, the view from every seat in that building is absolutely perfect. You can see everything. There are no obstructions. It's a great venue for basketball. It's nice and compact and tight. Everybody's on top of everybody, and it feels like a big time atmosphere. As a matter of fact, it's one of the best mid-major buildings I've been in, and I've been in a heck of a lot of them in the last 33 years.
Yeah, it's got a great look for sure.
And the women's program, Chris, had a pretty good year as well, right? I know the last few years they've been pretty much at
they
the top,
are the cream of the crop, the signature team of the Northeast Conference,
Yeah.
and you're absolutely right. And frankly, their season got cut shorter than the men's basketball season did because they were still playing in the conference tournament and they couldn't finish, and they probably would have won the championship again, at least in my opinion.
Chris, what do you think with the NCAA ruling this week that payers can now be paid for their likeness? Are you for that? Are you against it? Are you a purist and it bugs you, or you think it's about time?
No, I actually, Brian, I think it's about time. I've followed a lot of what Ed O'Bannon was doing years ago after he left UCLA, after he was out of the NBA. And, I can't remember which one of the games that his likeness was on, but, he got absolutely nothing out of it. And I followed a lot of the stuff, the interviews that he was doing with 2020 and with Nightline and with 60 Minutes, and really felt bad for Ed O'Bannon and the plight that he was going through, and the fact that UCLA had made millions, the NCAA had made millions off of these games, and the players, and he's obviously the poster child for this thing. But the players weren't getting anything out of it. And I thought that was vitally and terribly unfair. And I just think that giving these kids a chance to make a few bucks, especially if their universities are making bucks and the NCAA is making bucks and a video game company is making bucks, then they ought to get a piece of that money somehow.
I was thinking last year on that Tobacco Road game, Duke versus UNC, when Zion was playing for Duke. And now, of course, he has more money than the three of us, or otherwise, our whole family's forever generations. But remember, that's when he ripped out of that shoe and they thought he may have broke his ankle. And there was an interesting article that those StubHub tickets were up to $20,000 for that game. Jay-Z's there, Obama's there,
Yep.
and Zion Williamson is not making $1. If he broke his ankle that night, the reason everyone was in that arena would not make another dollar for the rest of his life in basketball if that was a career-ending injury. And you think, wow, how dramatically unfair, and Ed O'Bannon as well. So it's probably
I think it is about time. And I realize that the ruling that I glanced at the ruling this week of what they're going to be able to do, like endorsements and things of that nature. That obviously they need to govern that. They need to pay close attention to it so no one is breaking the rules and violating the rules or bending the rules. But I think it's only fair to be compensated for any work that you do.
TJ sent in a message, Chris, how do you feel about Pitt, Duquesne, and RMU playing every year? It's a disappointing year not seeing those games.
Yeah, I'd love to see it, to be quite honest with you. It was great that Heather Lyke, the athletic director at the University of Pittsburgh, talked Jeff Capel into letting the Panthers play at Robert Morris to open up the brand new building. I thought it was fantastic. It's not the first time that Pitt has played on the Robert Morris campus. A lot of people don't realize, but they played in a tournament there back in the 2000 or 2001 season. There was an exempt tournament that Robert Morris had hosted. I don't think that we actually played them, but they lost to South Florida in the championship game. But back to the question, should Pitt, Robert Morris, and Duquesne play on a regular basis? Absolutely. And I'll throw West Virginia in there too. And my understanding is, and I haven't seen anything of the schedule for next year, but my understanding is Robert Morris will play at WVU next year.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's a big game. How about the Colonial football program, Chris? Last year, pretty good year, 6-1 in conference play, 7-5 overall. Where's the direction of the football program at this point?
I think the direction is up. Obviously they had a super year. I wish I could talk more about how well they played, but I missed all but one game during the football season this year because I had a back injury, and I had to wait.
Broadcasters out with injuries a lot.
I know Hillgrove had the same thing. That's the first thing he said to me the night that we played Pitt at the UPMC Event Center. Is I went over to say hello to him, and I reached out my hand, and he said, "I have the same thing you have." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Back problems. I can't move." So he had surgery at the tail end of the Steelers season. But no, I only saw one Robert Morris football game in person. I watched all of them on either NEC Front Row or wherever they were playing. I watched the video streams of the games. But Bernard Clark has done a superb job with the football team. They really I thought they improved game by game this past year. They gave Buffalo a pretty nice scare even in the opener this year. But they were awesome this year, and I realized they graduated quite a few of their players in leadership roles. It's going to be tough replacing them right away, but I think Bernard's got a great grasp on the football program there. I think he's done a wonderful job since he's come in.
Well, Chris, this has been an insightful 30 minutes. Thank you for joining.
Before we let Chris go, real quick, Chris. What's the best game you ever broadcasted throughout your career?
And people are astounded because they expect me to say the Robert Morris Kentucky game.
That's it.
And that was a great game. It was a great game. It was a great moment. My voice was all over ESPN and Sports Center, and the video highlights live on to this day. But I have to tell you, there was a game that Robert Morris played in the Northeast Conference Championships. We were on the road at Quinnipiac, and I remember I traveled with the ball club, so we walked into the building at 5:00 in the afternoon, and the game started at 8:30. So we walk into the building at 5:00 in the afternoon, and the place was packed already, and the fans in there were all over our guys, and giving them every bit of guff you could imagine. And I remember Russell Johnson was playing for us at the time, and he looked up on the stands and was waving to everybody and dug out and doing, yeah, all this stuff. And as soon as I saw that, I knew our guys were going to win that game that night, and they did. And it was an outstanding ball game. Dalton Jones was tremendous in that game. Mike Rice was still the coach at that time, and they won the Northeast Conference Championship game on the road in the most hostile environment imaginable, in front of a crazy crowd. Quinnipiac had a last shot, and this kid named James Feldine threw the ball up from about 3/4 of the way down the court. It hits the backboard, hits the rim, and bounces about 5 times, and the ball landed in my lap. As the buzzer sounded, I swear to this day, the ball landed in my lap as the game ended. And people were trying to steal the basketball, and I was like over top of it, hugging it so that they couldn't get to it. And after the game, I took that ball and I gave it to Rice. I said, "Here, this is yours." And to me, it was the most gratifying win that I was able to call at Robert Morris.
That is so cool. Wow. What a career, man. Awesome, keep it going. We're big fans, and I think you will see you at the next RMU event, Chris, or when I run into you at a Moon Township event. Can't wait.
I can't wait either. You guys are always fun to be around. Brian, Ed, I appreciate it. I want to thank you for allowing me to be a part of your great show. I've been watching all week, and it's a lot of fun.
Hey, thank you, Chris, and good luck.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it, man.
Nice with that back.
All right.
There he goes, Chris Shovlin, the voice of the Colonials, everybody. How'd my voice sound when I talked to him? Did it sound enough?
Not as good as Chris's, man. Chris's voice blows both of us away. I mean,
my posture. Chris has great posture too. I should have sat up.
He's got the. Now I'm starting to get.
I should have sat up straight. I would have sounded better for Chris.
Now I'm getting concerned. All these old-time broadcasters getting back surgeries later on in life. I've been doing games for like 20-some years. These high school games. Is that going to catch up to me?
Old-time broadcasters. What do you mean by that? Go on the record. What exactly do you mean? Because Chris just hit off. I saw he was still listening.
He went off. I didn't say old. I mean experienced. These guys are old. Experienced.
I'm broadcaster.
Well, it's funny. Chris made that comment. He's right. Like you and I'll get a client that we'll go show a house for, and we'll start talking about where they grew up. Then you come to find out that they played high school football, and then I find out where, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, you did one of my games 20 years ago, and I'm like, man, I did, didn't I? And it's like, it's crazy, man. I mean, we're getting old too.
With Hall of Famer Chris Shovlin. Now I saw my brother today, Pat. Pat is a Robert Morris Hall of Famer. He went in last year with, I don't remember what year it was, but it was a soccer team. He was the equipment manager. But nonetheless, he never played a game, but he held that equipment, and we honor him as a Hall of Famer. And it's funny because I saw Pat, and he has his mask on, which is depressing, and you want to just grab people and hug them and see them. But I said, hey, Chris is going to be on the show tonight. Make sure you're watching. And Pat goes, oh, fellow Hall of Famer Chris Shovlin. And I was like, oh, that's right. Well, I'm not going to mention you. I won't embarrass myself.
Pat is always a Hall of Famer in our book, man, all the time.
Yes.
All the time.
Absolutely.
What else is exciting, man, is when we started doing this show about a month ago, by the time we got to this point in the broadcast, behind me would be completely pitch dark and would barely be able to see you. And now, man, it's still light outside. Look at that.
And tomorrow's supposed to be nice. The weather's going to be great, but then Sunday is going to be crappy. Hey, Ed, a reminder, next Sunday is Mother's Day. Don't let your wife down. Make sure all you have to do this week coming up is plan for next Sunday. You have literally nothing to do. Do you have anything planned yet?
I better start getting on Amazon and start ordering some stuff and hope that it gets here in time. Now I'm concerned it might not get here by next Sunday.
This is the ideal time. Just make some homemade crap. They love that.
That's right. I can do one of my drawings.
Get your drawing and draw a picture of Katie with the kids. Of course, Katie, she's always been pretty straightforward. If that picture doesn't look like her, she's going to tell you.
She's very critical, as we know. So she'd be the first to tell me that it's horrible. She criticizes our boys, too, when they do something. She'll say, that sucks. No, I'm just kidding.
I tried to have a secret meeting with my kids today about Mother's Day, and I was like, "So what should we get?" And like Cy, who's 8, has like the crazy. He's like, "We'll get a pepperoni pizza, and we'll tell them to spell out we love you, Mom, forever in pepperoni."
Which is awesome.
Like, does that even work? And then Ellie wants to cook, so it's tough to hide gifts and get ready for Mother's Day when you legally can't separate from the mother. We'll have to send her out for go see the neighbors or something, and we'll get some things together.
Well, you know what? It's the thought that counts. I always say, regardless of what we decide to do.
That's right. And you can there's like only 2 things that you can do wrong on Mother's Day. 1, not get anything, and 2, just say, "Oh, we honor you every day."
That's it. That's exactly it. We honor you every single day of the week. Yeah. That's for sure.
Jeff said, what's up, man? Those kids should not get a penny. If they want school, then do it. If you don't go pro. Oh, wait, hold on. He's crazy on Chris Shovlin back on the NCAA. I can't even read. Oh, hold on. Whoa. Kids should not get a penny. If they want school, then do it. If they don't go pro, universities should not be punished for having good athletes in their buildings. But if they get money otherwise from jerseys or anything like that, that money should go to providing for other things in the school. I don't agree with that. I think that if you're a person, that's your likeness. It's the way of the world. We live in it's a capitalist society. Earn what you can get. And people have said before, where you're getting an education, but I've always heard the argument that if you're getting an education, that's great, but that would be like taking a job and they don't pay you money, but they just pay you medical benefits. And they say, oh, we don't pay money here, but it's the benefits that you get. So I've always thought that was a fair comparison.
I see both sides of the argument. I mean, if my son or myself was an athlete or a coach or something at a major Division I school, and they were making profitable money off of my likeness and different things, I'd want in on the action. I think I'd be upset about that. But at the same time, too, these guys are getting scholarship. They earn it, though. I mean, one thing that I think is a very misconception is these Division I athletes can get cut, and they can cut their scholarships at any time. Nothing is guaranteed. So if they don't play up to par, especially in some of the lesser sports, not just football, but some of the lesser sports, they can lose that scholarship.
Jeff said, then go pro. Jeff said, then go pro. Go pro, Ed.
then go pro. I don't disagree with Jeff
easy,
completely
because
there.
what are the rulings? And I don't disagree. Get your degree after. Yeah, of course. After you have $30 million, go back for your degree. And I think that's a good idea. He's the biggest man on campus ever. But yeah, go pro. What are the requirements now? In NCAA basketball, you only have to play 1 year to go to the NBA. In football, do you have to play 3 years?
I think 2. I think after your sophomore year, you can go to the NFL.
And then what about volleyball? Well, then you should just pay these athletes if they can get it while they can get it, because there's not pro in every sport. So just give it.
Well, like they are getting scholarship money. I mean, it is the kid who's not an athlete is paying a lot of money in student loans to go to school there, whereas the athlete doesn't have to pay a dime. So, like I said, I see both sides of the argument.
I think what they're maybe trying to avoid is somehow a sports agent or somebody saying, look, let's unionize all these guys. As soon as you leave high school, let's unionize against the NCAA. So we have to get certain rights, and all that money will go out the door. So I think the NCAA probably sniffed that everyone's getting hip to this. It probably is the right time to do it, because they just want to save the money. I don't think they care if my likeness is on NCAA football. They want to make sure they make the most money. And so they probably made a balancing act to say that this is where they're going to get the most money.
And who was it, Reggie Bush, that got in trouble years ago for signing some autographs or something, got the Heisman stripped away from him?
Yeah.
He made money off of a signing event. I think that's what it was. Or Terrell Pryor, his big thing was he got free tattoos for signing autographs, right. I think, something like that. I don't know, man. It's a tough call. And, Jeff brings up a good point. Go pro then, go back and get your degree afterwards. I think it's –
Or just who cares? Just my relationship is not with – I don't care what Roethlisberger does off the field. I don't care what Terrell Pryor does off the field. Just win on Saturday and Sunday, and I'm happy. The rest of the time, take care of your business, man. It's money I can't get. Roethlisberger and I aren't competing to see who's going to be on the cover of Madden. If you can get on there and get paid, great. If
right.
Reggie Bush back in college can do it, great. It's not up against me. There you
go. Oh, man. One thing I will say is I missed the college football games, the EA Sports college football game, and there was also a sweet EA college basketball game, which was really cool that they used to have back in the day. And both those games stopped, a number of years ago. Chris brought up a good point. Ed O'Bannon, who played for UCLA, was the guy that was leading that charge a long, long time ago. But I'd love to see those games come back, man. That was a lot of fun.
Totally. Well, thanks for Krista being on, and thanks for all the comments as we move into a whole new world, Ed. Next week, May 8th, this time next week, somebody in Montour County, I don't even know where that is going to be back in business. Jamie said for Mother's Day, take your mom up north, take her to Erie, because everything will be open.
All right. Well, good stuff, man. I enjoyed it. Who's coming up on the show next week? We don't have anybody in the queue, do we?
We're working on a couple people. We're thinking about maybe trying to get some small business owners on, talk about what they're doing to get ready, get open. What do you think? Do you like that idea?
It's a great idea. That's a great idea, man. It's one of these things. It's funny, when we started doing this over a month ago, the 31 days thing. Now, it looks like it's going to be a lot more than 31 days for a bunch of us.
Yes.
That's for sure. Well, it's 46 days, but at the time, I think we were 2 or 3 weeks in when they announced 31 more days. And here we are. Who knows when things will get back? I don't think things will ever get back to the new norm until there's a vaccine for us, right?
When do you want to stop doing this show? When should we announce our final show and then bring everyone back on for a reunion?
In 5 minutes.
Wait, you're done.
That's it.
This is our wait. Shovlin was our last guest. I wanted to have a musical guest.
You and I do differ on that. I told Brian last week. I said, "Hey, let's get Sally Wiggum back on. Hey, let's get Andrew Stockey back on. Let's get Powerhouse Hughes back on." And Brian's comparison was, "Well, Jimmy Fallon's not going to bring Will Ferrell back twice in 3 weeks." And I love you, man, but I resisted the urge to say, really? We're comparing our show to the Tonight Show?
Well, we have a nice fan base of people who watch us and see us. And so I don't want someone to be like, they'll repeat. They brought back Sally.
Well, it's been over a month. There should be a 1 month rule.
Okay, so we can start bringing back. So we can bring back Seaback in like 10 days.
Oh, of course. We got to start with Rick and Sally and Powerhouse Hughes. I think
we have a great group of people who are listening and watching the whole time. If you know any local Pittsburgh celebrities that you think should be on the show, hook it up. Jeff just said bring Crosby on, and my eyes are getting bad because it's late. I'm old, and I thought he wrote Bill Cosby on, and I thought, how are we going to get Bill Cosby?
I did. I thought that said Cosby on as a joke, but Crosby. And I didn't sit on here. That would be that'd be great. He's probably not
we should get Trump on and Obama and everybody. That'd be great. I'm just happy to talk to Chris. I'd have Chris on every night.
Great voice. Great voice. Great guy.
Wish I had that voice.
Well, Brian, tonight we'll do it. Next week, Mario Lemieux. Oh, it's just me. Why did Brian cut me out? Did we lose him? Well, I guess that'll do.
Yeah, it's me. I'm back with a great broadcaster voice. All right, take us out.
Brian, come back on and give us your 17-year-old version.
I can't remember the voice. What was the voice?
How did that go? You were like,
hey, everybody. Is that what it was?
Hi, Mr. Mueller. Can I take out your daughter to the St. Hopkins dance? St. Hopkins.
Is that your favorite moment of the week?
It was. That was my favorite moment of the week.
I like that too. I like that. Just a quick update. I did send. We had Cody Sable on last night, the speed artist who makes all these, mega portraits for celebrities. And so I did send him that picture of you from Ross Straver Little League, and I said, "Hey, this would be a lot of fun." No response.
No bites.
He's not wasting his time.
I mean, he's got like a major project for Deontay Johnson, and then he wants to do my Little League picture. So I think he probably knows where he wants to go with that.
I think he knows, just like the NCAA, he knows where the money is.
Exactly.
Because as soon as he wrote back and said, "Yeah, I'll do that for you. It's $1,900." I'd be like, "Oh, dude, I come on, the quarantine and Corona and everyone's unemployed. I can't pay that." And then he has to go through the song and dance. So it's better just not to say anything.
I agree.
All right, Ed, I guess that'll wrap us up for tonight. Thanks to Chris Shovlin for a wonderful time. Hope to see him back in the broadcasting booth this fall and this winter. Wonder what he does. Wonder where he broadcast during the summer. Maybe he'd broadcast a Ross Straver Little League game.
He might.
The tape.
He might. He'd probably do it.
He probably would. He probably
would. Sound good.
$1,900. All right, Ed. We'll have a great weekend, and I guess we'll see everybody here on Facebook Live this coming Monday.
Yep. Stay healthy, everyone.
And good night.